Well, first of
Good
all,
afternoon.
good afternoon. My name is Arl. I'm the owner of GenSpeed, and this is sponsored by Boosted Click. And I'm here at Sonic Motorsports, so thank you so much. And I'm so grateful that you're giving me so much time
You're so
for this
welcome.
one, because I know you're so busy as a person, as we can tell.
But I appreciate it.
Yeah, the purpose of, I should say, interview, people say like podcast, but it's not really like that. What I'm trying to do here is educate like the people, or like especially my generation.
Absolutely.
So like what I've said, like in the beginning, that you're like the pinnacle of the person that I know, because you're in,
Oh, I appreciate that. That's such a high compliment.
yeah, you're in the Ferrari world. So pretty much, if I have any JDM question, it'd be so much easier for you to answer.
It doesn't really go with that way, but I mean, I actually show more respect to JDM cars than Ferraris.
Yeah, I mean, like JDM cars, or whatever car in the industry that is very hyped up on this generation.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna dive into it
Sure.
right away, because I don't want to waste your time and some of the people's time just watching.
No problem.
So if you want to introduce yourself, and let's go dive into that.
Sure, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Sonic. Of course, it's my nickname, but that's what everybody goes. I'm the owner of Sonic Motorsports. This is my 12 years running with this business. I started from being an apprentice restoring classic Ferraris, and then started getting into this industry, and then I established my own shop and started doing, service, customizations, and now it's my last 5 year of my life career goal, and I'm trying to do professional level of race cars in the racing industry.
Yeah.
And but then I'll reach my final approach, which is my ultimate life career. It's to design and manufacture my own brand of vehicles.
Yes.
And hopefully it's better than a Ferrari, and we'll see how it works.
Yeah. So I actually want to ask you about that, because the first time I came here, it was I'm not gonna lie, I was intimidated by you, but then but again, I did some research, just because like our first conversation was some people that owns companies or manufacturers, they're so friendly, but at the same time, I wouldn't say they're fake, or maybe they're just trying to defend the company on what they have. They don't want to be like bad mouth. But your approach, and this on the other hand, was, let's have this conversation, and then if I like you, I'll call you a friend, which is kind of it hit me hard, because that's how I am with my small business.
Sure.
So I let people borrow money if they want parts, and you mentioned that as well before. And then I want to circle back to how did you start your company, and it's so large now that you don't even need marketing. Like, people look at you, like I personally looked at you and looked up to you by now because of the work of what you did.
I really appreciate that. I mean, we're all students. We keep learning every day, right?
Yeah.
Just you and me both, the same thing. And I guess to me, all these are so what normal general public considers kind of fancy works, and they're just I'm trying to collect experience and knowledge while doing this, and doing more exploring to this industry and to the technical perspective.
Yeah.
To eventually contribute to my ultimate goal. To once I started doing my own design, I have a very clear clue, what a car is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I carry an industrial design background, and a lot of commercial car designers, they claim themselves as a car designer.
Yeah.
But their design work is just either too abstractive, or it's not realistic, and always having conflict with engineers, which they're really not supposed to be, if you understand how this thing works from the beginning and understand the culture behind it, and why a car is supposed to look like that, things like that. So all these are trying to gather experience and make sure I can reach that point.
Yeah, and that is the reason why again, thank you for this, because it's not like I can see a random person that will give me this time and talk about.
Oh, you came in the perfect time.
So like, I mean, yeah, and I'm so grateful. Thank you. And talking about like research and development,
yes.
I know you're into like composite, and I am as well, since I'm an inspector. But my knowledge is not as deep as yours. So with the kids nowadays, especially with the hype up trend of carbon fiber, and there's a lot of fakes out there, and there's a lot of real. And in terms of investment during our conversation,
Sure.
you mentioned that like I don't know what's their price or what their definition of expensive carbon fiber or cheap carbon fiber. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's just a carbon fiber, but a carbon fiber is really known for like aerodynamics. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, so nowadays for general public, for the aftermarket tuning market, most of the composite material, especially in this case carbon fiber, if they're for appearance-wise, they highly likely not what we normally refer to a real carbon. I mean, there's still real carbon, but there's so much knowledge behind it. How many, how heavy the material is, the cloth, the fabric is, what kind of matrix you use, what kind of resin you use. You use polyester, vinyl ester, or epoxy, and what's the work environment you need, how much toughness or hardness your final outcome need to exceed. These, if it's for appearance only, likely it doesn't have to go through all this. It's very common to have a multi-layer of fiberglass backing to create the basic shape, meanwhile reduce the cost, and cost not only the material but the manufacture process. And then you have one layer of carbon on top, just created the looking, the appearance.
Right.
However, if you get down to some structural place or something really related to a load bearing components, like an aero device, splitters, airfoils at the back, or even like a canard, dive plans, all these things, then they start to having more knowledge involved. You have a specific load requirement, fatigue requirement you have to consider before you start even decide what kind of material you're trying to use to construct this part. So again, it's not required for appearance product. But if people want to, really high quality, really functioning composite part, you really need to look into, at least look at the back of the parts and see what's the real material and what's the actual construction process for making that parts. Then you have an idea if it's wet lamination or it's vacuum bagged infusion. Or some modern mass manufacturer like SMCs or what's the other one called, RTM, resin transfer molding. All these things is for larger scale manufacturers. Like if you're building a McLaren tub, then that's something they're going to use. And each different manufacturer process, they will carry a different looking appearance. So people normally thinking, okay, carbon fiber, if you see this wing, then this is immediately, you can tell this is a 3K twill, 2x2 twill. So, and the width will decide, that's a 3K fabric, right? And you can't really see what's under that. But judging by the surface, how dry the layout is, and what's the pinholes on top of the surface, that's at least somehow some level of dry, so-called dry. It may not be pre-preg, but at least going through the vacuum bag or some compression molding to get excessive resin out. Likely it's a vacuum formed because the pinholes on the surface, and you notice this strand here, and that's something very common. It's not going to be seen from the larger manufacturer with the old pre-preg. This is a loose strand. That's definitely a wet layout at the beginning, and then it depends. And if you're looking for structural-wise, yes, it can be repaired back to restored to the original shape, and you can even make it stronger for sure, but with a slight weight penalty if you've done it right. However, if you just solely want have the original experience, the appearance restored with all the carbon weaves, everything looking 100% match, it's a little bit more difficult, but it's definitely doable. I see so many Chinese companies, they're offering this a service, but again, that doesn't contribute to anything of the strength of the
Yeah.
parts. Yeah, that's just looking.
So in short, the answer would be like get a quality carbon fiber part.
Yes, I mean there's a lot of things are quite surprising. Once I was doing research, the new Honda NSX,
Yeah.
the Acura NSX, right? The diffuser, it's crazy beautifully done. All the fins are molded into the diffuser. One piece is
Yeah.
not like attached the fins. I said, okay, let me see how much this piece cost. Giant piece, dry carbon. Take a guess how much that cost from dealership.
5,000.
I look at the price from dealership, $480. Yeah, that was my reaction, and
What?
I see the sticker inside Honda made in China, and it's not like a Chinese. China is very advanced on the composite nowadays,
Yeah.
but especially for mass production
Yeah, mass production.
with proper quality control. I mean, in that case, may well just replace that.
Right,
It's
right.
well worth it, and
Right.
it's repairable, but the cost effective wise,
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it doesn't worth.
Yeah.
I've been running with a lot of people asking me, "Oh, can you fix my this part, that part?"
Yeah.
One of my friends, he used to work with me, and he said, "Oh, I'll find you some customer. I have a buddy, he has a Camaro ZR1 or something. He has a carbon lip,
Yeah.
and it's cracked. Can you fix that? And you can make a lot of money." I said, "Okay, how much this piece cost?" He said, "That piece cost 1,400 new." I said, how about this? Because I have so many, carbon stuff need to be repaired from the Ferrari side. I said, I'll go through everything, the whole process with you. You help me out with that, and then you ask that question again to yourself.
Yeah.
From that point on,
Yeah.
I always make fun of him. Oh, how about you fix this for
For that amount. Right.
So
Oh, man.
there is a lot involved if you want to get things done right, especially you have
Right.
very clear requirement what the final goal is going to be. Everything's doable, just depends on how much effort
Yeah.
you're going to
How
put in.
much
Yeah,
funds and time, pretty
correct.
much.
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, they're working the pro racing series. I mean, they have P1, P2 cars,
Yeah.
prototypes, very heavy structural carbon fiber that need to be repaired. They can all be done, beautiful work, and they have a corresponding cost. And
Yeah, of course.
yeah, that's really compared to replace that entire parts, that's way cheaper than repair the parts. But if you bring that repair cost into the street product or aftermarket product,
Yeah.
compare with that, then it doesn't worth.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
not worth it.
It's all about the market,
Yeah.
The balance of the cost.
Yeah. So that's for the carbon fiber topic. I've been collected.
Absolutely.
I mean, I collected from the people to pretty much ask you.
Sure.
So I'm gonna dive into the tuning questions.
Sure.
It's one
Absolutely.
It's one of Steven's favorite topic. So
Hi,
pretty,
Steven.
so pretty much like there were a lot of tuners nowadays. Some of them just wants to make money off of it. If a car blows up, then they ghost out. They're gone.
What do you mean by they're gone? I mean, their tuning shop is closed?
So, their street tune like eTune, they email you the map, you download it. So most of us use Cobb Access Port
I see.
or Haltech.
You were talking about remote tuning.
Yeah, remote tuning.
I see.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's an efficient way to do if you're with a very knowledgeable tuner.
Right.
I never be a big fan of that simply because that's never going to be done correctly.
Right.
100%.
Right.
And don't even mention if you were trying to push 100% of everything, all the potential out of your engine. Because remote tuning, they have to give you a certain margin because there are so many unknown things the tuner doesn't know. Say, very simple example, what's the quality of the fuel? You
Right.
said you're running with E85
Right.
or 98. Is that pump gas really E85 or
Right.
98? They can't insure that.
Right.
So that's why they always do a margin for the remote tuner, and they send you the tune. Normally, they categorize that with a stage, different stage. normally it's just basically fuel enrichment and ignition timing advance.
Right.
But normally they may not even advance the timing much. With
Exactly.
the corresponding boost level increase, they probably retard the timing to a certain point. But if you are on actual chassis or engine dyno, then that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
You're looking at the engine, you have each detailed feedback. You can pick that up immediately from the feedback of the machine.
Right.
Right. So you do corresponding changes. Here at this load cell, I'm not reaching 100% of torque value. I keep going up, bring up ignition timing until it flat out. Okay, that's probably the optimum.
Yeah, I totally get it, and I totally agree with you. I want to share my part of my experience in tuning, which is I'm very loyal to my tuner,
Okay.
Shinji Tune.
Okay.
He's a tuner for Formula D, but he reminds me of you. He's very humble. He doesn't really market himself much just because he doesn't need it. So it's kind of like you. I saw your post earlier, like I don't answer phones, I don't do this.
Yeah.
It's the same, you know.
Yeah.
So like, your advice would pretty much like research the loyalty of integrity of the tuner. Is that what you're saying? Like before jumping into having that tuner tune your car.
Correct.
Right.
And most of the time, that level of a professional is directly linked to the cost. So I
Right.
completely understand a lot of customers who would like to cut the cost because maybe they don't really need ultimate horsepower or torque level.
Yeah.
Even if they do flash the ECU and say, okay, that's claimed to have a 450 horsepower, and they can't really feel that. I said that for a reason, because the old tuning shop that I used to work with, they have a lot of customer just say, okay, I have this tune done, and it's guaranteed to have a 600 horsepower. That car started from a 400, factory.
Yeah, right.
And they put on the dyno, it turns out 375. And he can tell it's the mental thing,
Yeah.
It's like, I have 300 of a mental horsepower there, spirit,
Right,
But
right.
is that the truth? No, it's not.
No,
But,
no,
is
yeah.
the customer happy? Yeah, they may be happy actually.
Yeah, so that's well, not the answer that I'm looking at, but in most certain scenarios, people were like, "Oh, I want this, I want that," and the tuner would be like, "Yeah, I can give you that." But normally, I would say the customer is being cheated on because of course, it's business, but at the same time, it's important to have the integrity. And thank you for that answer.
Well, yes, absolutely. I want to address one thing is from the tuner perspective, from the commercial perspective, it's if the ultimate goal is to making profit, of course, they're trying to involve as little time and effort as possible.
Right, right.
However, if you have good respect to the industry, to the customer, and to yourself, and if I'm doing that, at least I'll have a list of questions to the customer. Okay, what's your hardware setup?
Right.
And what's your running condition? All these things. You probably remember that when I first list that question to you,
Yeah.
even if you just want to do alignment, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's actually my next question. Yeah, because so in tuning, especially in our platform, like the Super platform, or I don't know the Volkswagen, your platform, Steven, but they just send you an email, load this map, and turn all these parameters. But in your case, I know you go in depth by like what kind of tires and what kind of wheels are you using, and the alignment is pretty much important. And you even said, and I want to address this to the one who will be watching. Why is string alignment more important than the machine one? I know you said something about feedback before, but do you mind explaining that further?
Please ask what's the actual question again? Well, are you asking what's the difference between the string alignment and the machine alignment?
So like when you're tuning, there's a difference between it in street, like remote tuning.
Oh.
So there's a difference between if you use like a track tire or a slick, or like most people use all-season tires. But the tuner will never address that because
Correct.
Of course, they want the money right away. Probably, if tuners hear this one right now, they're gonna get mad. But I'm also here to unfold the truth for the people, especially my generation who doesn't know that they just pay. So, what would your advice for us to ask for the tuners on that area or aspect?
Okay, I would say provide as much detailed information to the tuner as possible.
Yeah.
And then asking for advice from the tuner based on my setup, what do you recommend? And then immediately you will tell how professional the tuner is if he can have the corresponding feedback to your specific setup.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned something that's very interesting about all-season tires and track slicks.
Right.
Things like that, of course, if you have a 600 torque on the slicks, you probably will have no grip. I mean, you have full grip,
Yeah.
and you basically put all the load on the engine and the drivetrain, right? And if you're running with all-season tires, your tire just simply doesn't, it will give up, it will start spinning. And guess what? Normally, if it's a rear-wheel drive car, you'll feel the car is actually faster because it's not as easy to control, and you feel the wildness of the vehicle, and then you feel like, oh, that thing's fast. But then after same exactly setup, you don't change anything, don't change the tune, you put a slick on that. You say, oh man, this car's boring. Why did it suddenly become so slow?
Right.
I said that from my personal experience with Skylines,
Yeah.
And so that's something I would recommend the customer to provide as detailed information to the tuner as possible, and asking for advice specifically for this setup, and to see if a tuner will provide, okay, maybe we will reduce the torque, or based on the area of where you live, where we have a questionable of the pump gas quality, octane quality, so maybe we'll give you a little bit more margin on the ignition advance. So things like that, or we'll address more on the knob control perspective. So
thanks for answering that again, because like a lot of the tuners nowadays, they just like, oh, throw this map, load it, and give me the revision, and without this interview or the knowledge that I can provide to the public, they wouldn't know,
That will work roughly in a very rough region. I mean, but it will never be precise. And,
I mean, if you want to do it right, like,
Oh yeah, absolutely. You need. There's a reason to have the dynamometer, is to actually, as a measuring equipment, it tells you what's the reading, all the parameters that your physical engine can produce. You're converting from chemical energy into mechanical energy. So how efficient this energy conversion is. So that's how the dynamometer was trying to tell you, and then you doing the setup based on the numbers.
That makes sense. And then I have two more topics that I really need to ask. The second to the last is, a lot of kids nowadays, they look up to the highest tier of racers, which is F1, and which is very respectable. But then again, people just hop on the track without any coaching, no proper suspension, but they want 800 to the wheels or whatever widgets, right, of the numbers. As a professional, like you, what would your best advice be from the foundation to finish in order to reach that goal?
For entry-level track days?
Yeah, so most people are like, oh, I'm going to go track, but they think coilovers is what they need, but they're not thinking about the front center roll, they're not thinking about having a drive shaft and all those supporting mods. So what would your advice be to the entry level in order for them to, I guess, be a track ready professional?
Yes, the answer is very obvious. It's safety. And safety comes from different perspectives. One is a positive safety, one is a passive safety.
Yeah.
Passive safety means when you're involved in the collision, how much you can be protected. If you still have the factory bumper support, basically all this crash scramble zone, with all this energy absorbent, you have a much higher chance to, to walk away from a crash, a head-on crash.
Yeah.
But a lot of people thinking like, let's put drift bars on that. It's light and it looks professional.
Yeah.
But they're simply just for holding the bumper in place. They're not trying to absorb any energy, and they're trying to protect the occupants. So that being said, it's from the passive safety perspective. But of course, your personal gears, your very solid racing seat, your 4-point harness, your personal protection equipment, helmet. A lot of people was thinking, okay, if I go on to track days, I need a roll cage, all these things. That's actually the next step, because you will have more damage to your brain if your head directly hit the roll cage. Because you have to have your proper gear first and then jump to that. And now gets to your real question. Now it's the positive safety perspective, and a lot of horsepower will break the balance of the original factory setup. And you need to have a corresponding brake to be able to stop the vehicle to overcome that horsepower. And you need to have a proper suspension setup and the wheel tire grip to actually use that much of extra horsepower. So I would say, because normal vehicle is designed in day-to-day use, it's not really fly down the track front stretch with 140 miles per hour. So maybe at low speed, lower velocity, your tire grip is sufficient. And then by the end of the straightaway, you suddenly feel like, oh man, I have no grip, and start sliding and start getting panic and lost control. I mean, it's all very normal. So I'll say the first thing is to get proper tires if you have enough grip. And because a lot of people say, oh, brake is the first thing, and because you have to be stopped. But that's a good approach, but it's a common misconception, because the bigger the braking energy, everything will still get down to the contact patch of the tire. So a good grippy tire with proper alignment setup. And then you can start considering the brake and the suspension components change based on your actual feedback. That's when you start getting used to this warming yourself up and start getting used to this track driving experience.
And the very important reason why I really asked that is because I sell aftermarket parts, right? And my approach to my customers is customer service, 100%. I tell them, and you can please correct me if I'm wrong. So how I build and how I help them build this, I tell them to, if you want, let's say 500, 600 horsepower, build your suspension and your stopping power first, and before you go to your performance mods. Would that be right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because most people nowadays are just, I want 800, but they don't look at their foundation of their suspension. So,
correct.
With you agreeing with me, that makes me actually feel good that I am serving to my customers, that I'm teaching them the right way, not just selling them, just like, because most companies nowadays are just like, I want this, so I'm going to give you this, this, and this. But when I look at the suspension, it's just like coilovers. I'm like, and then the stopping power is just like 2-pot, it's not 6-pot, 4-pot, or like endless motor brakes,
Well, that's, let me correct you on one thing. It's, it's the brake force is not really judging by the how many, 6-pots or 4-pots. A lot of factory design is pretty, even a single piston caliper is efficient enough. And normally when people on high performance driving, if the brake really does its job, which means you have enough grip on the tire, the first thing failed on the grip is from the temperature. I mean, it's the fluid getting boiled, and you lost the brake force. You pedal to the metal, and you just don't stop. On top of that, the high temperature will start having break down the pad compound, and then you lost all this efficiency. So you see a lot of professional race cars, if there's under regulation, they're using factory brake setup. However, it's completely different brake pad, brake fluid,
Right.
you will have required to have braided, brake lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this will, guarantee to have sustainable. I mean, it's sufficient
Right.
braking effort. It doesn't have to be a lot of pods because a lot of pods normally come with a bigger brake component. And yes, theoretically, a larger contacting surface, the better, the more friction you will have, and the less heat stress to each component.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that they will actually have a lot more stopping power compared to your factory setup.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So that's one misconception that most people will have.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, now I learned that. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes. But you will see if you're using a factory brake system
Yeah.
with track capable pads and setup, the rotor will be eat up really fast. Maybe a one track day, your one set of rotor is gone. It's because the pads are very aggressive. They provide enough friction, good initial bite, consistent, never fade, and guess how much energy? The energy has to go somewhere, and then they eat the rotor up. So
Right, that makes sense.
compared with the multi-pod, very large rotors, they may last a much longer time and are very stable in a very stable manner. That's the reason why pro race cars, endurance racings, they will have all this large, very aggressive-looking brake systems.
That makes sense now. Thank you. And then my last question, guys, is oil.
Oil, yes.
Oil. So tuners, engine builders, they always go use this oil, 5W30, OW20, all that. For me, however, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm learning
ready
every day.
for that.
So I switch from 300V Motul 5W40, but again, it's different for every car. So I tell my customer, instead of you listening to, the engine builder, which is right as well, or the tuner, I tell them to get oil analysis. So is that the right way to approach in what kind of oil they're going to use for the car?
I would agree on that part. However, I will have the initial selection based on the engine builder, not tuner's idea, because the initial viscosity is really based on the bearing clearance. And say if you are building a full-blown track-used Subaru EJ, and you will have a larger bearing clearance for the main and for the rod. Okay, so now if you're still using the factory 020 oil, you simply cannot hold the oil pressure.
Right.
And especially if you're not using that for constant high RPM oil pump is fully spinning all the time, have enough pressure, then you just you lack of oil pressure, and that's actually going to damage your engine.
Yeah.
So that's when the time you will need to use a higher viscosity engine to restore, to get a cushion, to make sure the crank is floating in the bearing properly. And the other thing is how much heat your engine will generate. That will be another important perspective to choose oil, and that's when we normally see if it's multi-grid oil. We'll see from the later number. It's like a 40, 50, 60. The higher the number is, the higher it will stay the viscosity during high temperature. Basically, maintain the same amount of pressure, and from the lubricity perspective, there is actually a difference. I'm a motor dealer myself, and I used to. This is really not professional at all, and I don't mean to be proud of doing this, but one time I remember I finished building a E92 M3 track car, and I have by chance two couple of one 300V, one 8100 straight use oil, both 2060 weight, and I was doing the cutting on the bandsaw. I said, okay, I will put the 8100 in there first, and they cut so smooth, nice, very well done. And I run out of that, and so then I start using a 300V, and the cutting speed is dramatically reduced. So that's the first time I was so surprised. There is such a big difference on the lubricity perspective Plus, all the fluid, not only fluid, all the other components, you can get their specifications from their manufacturer. So you have all this shearing viscosity and shearing load, all the viscosity perspective, all these things, and the corresponding recommended replacement interval. They're all actually listed on their manufacturer website.
Right.
So that will be a very good starting point. And then after you have your initial idea, get your first selection, and then you start running your engine, preferably after the braking period, because during the braking you really use braking oil.
Oil.
Yeah, you're expecting to have things to be shaved off. So, and then you send the oil samples to analysis.
Yeah. And
then you will see what you need to adjust based on basically how much bearing material inside, and how much cold run boiling point and the oil is right now compared with new, and what's the corresponding engine temperature you're using that right or not.
Yeah. So we're on the same page on that, and again, man, thank you, and I'm so grateful for this time.
You're so
and
welcome.
Let me run real quick. We actually have a gift for you.
But you have a gift for me.
Yeah. Since I'm more on like a time capsule guy, I kind of want to save everything. So let me run real quick and let me give it to you.
Thank you very much.
It's really loud.
I know it's loud, isn't it?
I thought this is for the real. I feel like it's not.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
So this picture was during our first meet.
Look at that! Yeah! That's so nice.
And then since
look, that's me.
yes. So
How was you?
That was the day when we became friends, like what you said.
You look different. You lost weight.
And then since the video is sponsored by Boosted Click, we're giving you this one.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And since you like R34 more than R35, so we get your R34.
Oh yeah, that's the one. Oh, nice. That's a real car there.
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome. They're the king.
Yeah, so that's. Thank you, man.
RB rule the world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Opportunity, but she's not gonna like that, cause.
No.
But I really thank you, man. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
Thank you so much. All right, guys. So that was the interviewer podcast, whatever you call, guys, for today. Sponsored by Boosted Click. And if you want to hit up some local garages, this is XGEM, owned by Elizabeth Hope. And once again, I'm Marlon Quisito, owner of Jetski Solutions. If you need to build your Subarus, I'm here for you guys. And I'm here at Sonic Motorsports. Thank you.